What is going on, everybody? Jumbo Thick here, back with our fourth installment in the Q&A video series. This one might not be quite as long. I didn't get as many questions as I did in the previous one. Hopefully that doesn't mean you guys are losing interest in it. But feel free to ask me questions at the end of this one as well, as far as if you want anything answered. Maybe I'll include it in a new video. Maybe I'll try to answer them in the comments section. Just let me know what you guys want to do. And as usual, guys, this is going to be kind of more of a talking kind of video. I'll be unscripted, so hopefully I don't stumble too much. Just, you guys know me. So as usual, let's get into the actual questions, guys. And these can come from anything. It doesn't matter. Lore, video games, whatever you guys want to ask. It's cool. I'm answering questions. Our first question comes from Miguel Santiago. So, he basically says, I still don't understand why, with all the high elves' power, their gods are so weak. Being eaten by Slaanesh, Azurian is powerless like all the other gods. Although I'm fond of them, why are they so weak? So, as far as the Elven Pantheon goes in Warhammer, essentially what happened to them is, with the coming of chaos, they lost their grip, their ability to control a lot of their gods. Essentially, the actual just sheer magical backlash of the warp gates collapsing, it kind of overwhelmed the magic at the time that they had been able to harness, and so they had to make several attempts to ring in their deities that they in fact created. And over time, they even lost the knowledge that they were created deities in the first place. So they actually became deities. I know that is very weird, but that's kind of how it happened. So originally they were creations, then they actually became their actual gods. So the elves have a very special relationship with Slaanesh. They have earned his ire to the nth degree. It has something to do with the way that the elves feel emotions. They feel them more strongly than your average anything, really. So for that reason, Slaanesh has taken a very specific interest in all of the elves, and they are pretty much cursed upon their death to be eaten by him. And for this reason, their gods took a special interest by Slaanesh, and Slaanesh is far more powerful than any single deity from the Elven Pantheon. And so they were basically, for the most part, they weren't destroyed, but they were severely weakened. And if you go by 40k lore, in 40k lore, they were literally like eaten and gone. Like, just the vast majority of the Pantheon doesn't exist anymore. In Warhammer, they still technically exist. They're just severely weakened. And that also stems from the fact that there are just a fraction of the elves left, the actual elves that actually do any of the worshipping. And so the only gods that really get any attention are Azurian, Cain, Orion and Isha, and I think those might be the four big ones right now. I think all of the other ones are really low key, and if they do have any abilities whatsoever, it's very limited. Maybe Moray Hague, probably, and then oh man, I can't remember her name. It's not Moray Hague, the one that the Bretonnians accidentally are worshiping right now. I can't think of the name. But those are the elven gods that are technically still receiving a decent amount of worship, but it's nothing compared to what they used to be, mostly because the elves just don't have the numbers, so they don't have the worshippers that they used to, which makes them weaker. And the dwarves suffer from a similar fate, actually, with the ancestor gods. Apparently they used to be a lot more powerful than they are now, and that might be due to the amount of magic that used to exist in the world that has slowly declined for some apparent reason, not just because of the Great Vortex, but just because of, over time, certain things have been fallen into place to limit the amount of magic until, of course, the end times happen. But we're not going into that, guys. So that is kind of the reason that the elven gods just in Warhammer Fantasy, they're just not what they used to be at all. But you do get the idea that they do have some abilities, like the Phoenix Guard are imbued with the might of Assyrian. They can smite demons and things like that. So they're not just the weakest beings in the world, but they are far diminished from what they used to be. I mean, they used to be able to summon Cain, especially during when the warp gates first fell. They would summon their deity, Cain, the Lord of Murder, and he would just ravage through armies of demons single-handedly. And they just don't have the same abilities anymore. But I'm kind of beating a dead horse now. So you get the idea. That's kind of what happened. And let's move on to the next question. All right, so my next question comes from Twantinho. I think that's your name. I apologize if I mispronounced it. You should know me by now. I mispronounce everything. So Twantinho, he basically, his question is, the lizardmen don't have individuality because they're part of some sort of collective brain. That means lizardmen kind of seek the same salvation, the Great Plan. Yes. Problem is that in the Warhammer game series, Warhammer 2 specifically, there are different factions of lizardmen. Okay, and they can go to war with each other. Yes, I've had this exact same notion. That means that there are differences in ideology. Basically, the whole Warhammer universe is about people seeking their salvation, which result in murdering, so on and so forth. How is it possible? So how is it possible that lizardmen are capable of having different interpretations of the Great Plan? If there is no such thing as individuality in the lizardman world. Okay, so, and there is actually more. Hold on one second, let me finish reading this. It's because the Slan Mage priests abuse their power? Possibly. How is it that possible lizardmen were designed to follow the Great Plan with one single purpose? Is there one true purpose for the Great Plan? Is the Great Plan, or is it just overthinking it and gameplay overall? Okay, yeah. Okay, so basically, the lizardmen as a whole, they are trying to follow the Great Plan. Now, there is actually instances in the lore of lizardmen that don't get along, and that is because the Slan Mage priests are technically autonomous. They are all separate from each other, and they all can interpret the Great Plan in their own way. So they're all trying to do the same thing. It's kind of, take this for instance, it's kind of like Christianity. You have the same blanket idea. You have this one book that everybody reads, but yet how many denominations of Christianity are there? Hundreds, I think, probably at least hundreds. And that's because everybody has their own subtle differences on what is right and what is wrong. And it's the same theory when you're talking about the Great Plan and the lizardmen. Each of the Slan has a different point of view on what the Great Plan is and how it needs to be accomplished. They all agree that it needs to be accomplished, but they don't all agree how to do that and even what they're doing to begin with. So it gets very convoluted. It's basically the idea of a just religious zealous fervor without any guidance. That's kind of the idea behind the lizardmen and the Great Plan. So they're completely devoted, and each temple city that's run by a Slan Mage priest is autonomous. So they do come together to fight, to get rid of outward threats. Sometimes, not always. There have been instances where certain Slan have allowed invaders to crush rivals. I wouldn't say rivals. Allowed them to defile a sacred place because they believe that the people there, I guess it was ordained in the stars, or it gets pretty crazy like that. And for the exact same reason, because there's different versions of the Great Plan, it is not unheard of for different lizardmen factions to not work together at all. They simply, their ideals are so different that they can't function together. The best example of this is the lizardmen of the Southlands and then the lizardmen over in Lustria. They are extremely different, almost, I wouldn't call them different species, but they have severely different ideologies. For instance, the lizardmen of the Southlands actually have attempted to make contact with several of the different races, and there's been talks of trade at some point with them. The lizardmen of Lestria, there's no such thing whatsoever, and this could be because of the schism of the great water, great pond, I believe is what they call it. The ocean that separates them could have caused this schism long ago. But for some reason, the lizardmen of the Southlands and the lizardmen of Lestria have very differentiating views. So, if you take that into account, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch to come to the conclusion that it's not written in the lore, but it would not exactly be lore unfriendly for lizardmen factions to actually fight each other. Now, I don't think that they would crush each other, like burn their temple cities or anything. They would probably just assert their ideals upon the other one if they were able to overcome them in some way. I'm not sure how that would happen, but that's what makes the most logical sense. In the lore, typically, the Slan Mage Priestess, they kind of wake up, they think for a couple minutes, they do what they think they need to do, and then they go back to sleep. So there's really not a lot of conflict that happens until you get closer towards the end times, and then the Slans start getting a lot more invigorated. So they start taking a lot more interest in the wider world, and that's when you start seeing a lot more conflicts. For instance, Mazdamundi is the most, what would you call him, notorious of the Slan Mage priests for being different than the average Slan. He's taken a much more direct approach to everything, and so he would actually be in direct confrontation with many of the average temple cities that kind of are around him. He's still their respected elder and somewhat their de facto leader of their entire race, but that doesn't mean that things wouldn't happen. So in a way, CA took a little bit of a liberty with, I mean, it is just a video game, so they want to make it interesting. So in my opinion, they didn't do anything wrong making them different factions capable of fighting each other. Now, I would have liked in something similar to Norska, where you could either trade or develop quicker diplomatic relations with other lizardman factions and able to bring them in quickly, as opposed to this long drawn out, and the Total War AI is kind of, it's hard to deal with sometimes, and it just won't let you confederate. It's at certain points, once you get to a certain strength level, factions that easily should be like, oh yeah, we want to be friends, and especially lizardmen, they would want to join together. They just won't do it, and it's super frustrating, and that's just the way the game is right now. There have been several mods that do fix that, so hopefully CA keeps getting on the right track with that. But for the most part, I don't see it as a negative. I see it as more of a gameplay aspect, but it does have some merit in the lore. I wouldn't consider it lore friendly, but it's not lore unfriendly either. So hopefully that answers your question. I totally just gushed all over some lizardmen. So let's move on to the next question. And this one is from Zargaz Headwalker. Man, you've been a subscriber for quite some time, man. His question is, how powerful is Malekith? I've heard people say he can disintegrate entire ranks with the snap of his fingers. Okay, so I did do that lore video on Malekith. I would recommend checking it out if you haven't. I'm sure you have, though. But Malekith is easily one of the most powerful entities in Warhammer, simply because he's one of the oldest, and in Warhammer, the older you are, the more powerful you are. It's just kind of one of those old tropes. And so he's one of the oldest living beings, outside of something like dragons or dragon ogres, something that predates the old ones. He's one of the oldest living beings of the new uplifted races. Him and his mother are extremely old. So Malekith is a superb fighter, hand-to-hand combat. He's been fighting for thousands of years in hand-to-hand combat, so he's an expert in that. Then on top of that, he is an expert with sorcery and magic. So he's not just good with magic, he is ridiculously good with magic. This is how good with magic he is. He managed to summon Nakari, the Slaneshi demon that is hunting him and similar elven individuals that have the same bloodline. He's hunting the blood of Anarian to seek vengeance upon him because Anarian banished him, and yeah, he almost died. So he's, well, I should say it is super pissed and wants to kill them all. Malekith summons this demon, a greater demon. It's of Slanesh. I mean, that's nothing to joke about. A greater demon is just a couple steps down from probably, I don't know if there's anything as strong, honestly. They're easily on par with a dragon, I'd say. I'd say a dragon has probably a 50-50 shot of taking out a greater demon in one-on-one combat, if it's a fair fight, which usually it isn't. Special dragons, of course, have a better chance, but there's not many things that exist that can take on a greater demon one-on-one and win. He took this greater demon and bound it to his will. He enslaved a greater demon. With his willpower, that's just how ridiculous of a character he is. So, not only did he do that, but then later on, and this all happens in the, I believe it's The Blood of Anarian, the Tyrion and Teclis kind of novels. Later on, he gets severely wounded by Teclis, and he has to retreat, and he ends up retreating into the realms of chaos. He goes into chaos itself. Not necessarily on purpose, but he wasn't planning to be there for very long. And he ends up back in the realms of chaos, and he's wounded, and he gets confronted by that very same greater demon. So he fights Nakari, one of Slanesh's biggest champions, in one-on-one combat on his home turf, where his powers are immeasurable, and he lives. He gets wounded in the process, but he was already wounded from before. But he manages to get back to our realm alive. That is unheard of. There's not many beings that have crossed over into the realms of chaos, not being a chaos entity, and made it back whole, unscathed. So he came back alive. Then on top of that, this same demon breaks its way into Nagaroth to try and murder him again. And he just basically bitch slaps it and puts it down. So he just completely annihilates a greater demon of Slanesh by himself in the physical plane. The only reason why it even had a chance of hurting him was when it was on its own turf, and it was like quadruple the power that it would be in our realm. So Malekith is no joke. He is a serious force to be reckoned with, and the only way that they've dealt with him on the battlefield is they have to try to cancel him out with other serious spellcasters, because he will fight very dirty in hand-to-hand combat, and so you need spellcasters to keep him honest and to keep him busy. And that's why the only reason he hasn't completely taken over Ulthuan at this point is because Teclis is there, and Teclis keeps him in check, because Teclis is just barely a step above him in power level when it comes to magic, and I mean just a fraction, not much. So for that reason, Malekith is, yes, he is ridiculous. Sadly, they couldn't do that for Total War Warhammer, because he would just be, it just wouldn't even be fair. If someone had Malekith, they would just wipe out a quarter of your army by themselves. So they had to tone it down quite a bit. But in the lore, he's like a mythological character. He's like something that would exist in the times of legend, because he literally is a living legend. So yes, I'm gushing over MacLeod once again. So let's move on to the next question, guys. Hopefully that answered your question. All right, and the next question comes from LOL the LOL. Interesting name, man. So this is technically 2 questions. He said, firstly, would you consider making Warhammer/Warhammer 40k related Let's Plays of upcoming new games that are not from CA? As an example, Let's Plays of Battlefleet Armada 2, maybe the single-player campaign. And secondly, would you consider making gaming news and or review videos about any games that interest you? You know what, okay, so as far as the first question, Let's Plays from various Warhammer titles, I would be all about it if it was in my wheelhouse. It has to be something if I'm not interested in it, it won't be fun for you guys to watch me play it, if that makes any sense. I would like to try it out before I put it on the channel, just in case, if I think it's something that I'm really not going to like. So, I don't know. I don't know about Battlefleet. I don't know that much about Battlefleet Armada, just because I don't know a lot about 40k. I know probably more than your average person about Warhammer 40k, but not enough for me to feel comfortable, like, making more videos on it or anything like that. Like, I'd leave that to the more 40k specific channels. So, I mean, I'd be up for it if it was something that interested me. I definitely would be up for a 40k or definitely a Warhammer Fantasy Let's Plays. I've really thought about Mordheim, especially now that it's on Xbox One. It's just easier for me to play and whatnot, because technical difficulties with the computer occasionally, so it's nice for me to be able to play it on something else. But I would not be opposed if it's something that I'm taking a serious interest in. So, you know, I typically like strategy games. I'm really into strategy games. They're my favorite. So, but I also like horror games. So if there was like a survival horror version of Warhammer 40k, or, oh man, there's lots of cool options that you could fit into 40k or Warhammer Fantasy. I mean, I would prefer Warhammer Fantasy, but I'm going to be realistic with myself. CA ended Warhammer Fantasy, so the chances of me getting any decent Warhammer Fantasy video games are probably really slim, other than Total War right now. And Vermintide's cool, but you have to have a group of people to play Vermintide. So, but yes, I'm not opposed to it. I'm willing to try a bunch of things, see if I like them, and if I don't like them, I'm not going to do it. But as far as gaming news, I do want to actually start. I want to get on that a little bit more than normal. I'm plugged into the gaming scene. I used to work at a video game store a long time ago in my teens, and that's just always been a big part of my life. So, you know what? I probably should. I should definitely maybe do some, hey, I'm looking out for these titles. What do you guys think about them? Kind of stuff. Maybe I'll do some of that. You know, that's actually a nice little kudos to you, man, for giving me a couple ideas. And as far as reviews, I've thought about doing reviews, and I feel like if you're going to do a true review, you have to finish that game. You need to play it through its entirety, or play to the point that you just can't play it anymore because it's just that bad. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I could do reviews if you guys are interested in them. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll do them after I complete a Let's Play. Maybe I'll post a review after that and see what you guys think. So, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, we could definitely do that. So maybe I'll try a couple, see if you guys pick up on them. If you don't like them, I just won't do them anymore. So there is that. But hopefully I answered your questions, man. And thank you for asking them. Gave me a couple good ideas. I appreciate that. And that is about all I've got for this Q&A, guys. So this is Q&A number 4. Done and did. So we are over 3,000 subscribers now. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content. I know I can't upload as regularly as I used to. Unfortunately, it just comes with parenthood, and you know, I still have to work. So there is that. I wish I didn't, but I do. So there is that. I wish I could spend more time on the YouTubes making the videos, but it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. I hope you guys are enjoying all the content. I'm hoping to maybe start some new Let's Plays. So, you know, if you want to give me some ideas, leave them down in the comment section on what you guys might want to see. As far as, or you know what? What I'll probably do is I'll probably do another video like I did before about, hey, this is what's coming up, what I'm interested in, pick what you guys want to see, kind of stuff. So maybe I'll just do that and have one up here in the next week or so. I am going on vacation, so I won't be here for a week, guys, unless I can sneak away to upload a couple videos here and there, but we'll see. As always, guys, I have been Jumbo Thick. Thank you oh so much for your patronage and for watching everything that I've got uploaded. And I hope to see you all very soon in my next videos. Have a good day.